At the beginning of the film, we are introduced to an indoor pool where a young girl named Vicky accompanies her mother, Joanne. Joanne is there to teach a swimming aerobics class. After the class, Vicky waits for her mother in the locker room. During her wait, she encounters a worker named Nadine who has noticeable burn scars on her face. Nadine unintentionally frightens Vicky, but their interaction is cut short when Joanne arrives to take Vicky away. Later, Joanne takes Vicky to a nearby pond known for its icy waters. To protect her mother's skin from the cold, Vicky applies a special cream on Joanne's body. While Joanne takes her swim, Vicky experimentally preserves some of the leftover cream on her hands by sealing it in a small jar. That evening, Vicky's father, Jimmy, returns home from work. He notices that Joanne has chosen to let Vicky sleep in their bed, preferring her company over his. Feeling slightly displaced, Jimmy gently moves Vicky back to her own room. The following day unfolds with routine. Jimmy heads out for his shift as a firefighter, and Joanne leaves for the pool. Meanwhile, Vicky, equipped with several empty glass jars, starts a new project. She meticulously labels each jar with the intent of collecting and preserving the unique scents of various insects and plants. As part of her daily ritual with her mother, they visit the pond. Vicky shares with her mother that she possesses a unique ability to recognize objects solely by their scent, which is why she collects various natural items. Intrigued and somewhat skeptical, Joanne decides to test Vicky's olfactory skills. She blindfolds her daughter and proposes a playful challenge. Joanne will hide nearby, and Vicky must locate her using only her sense of smell. Initially, Joanne hides behind a tree, but to her surprise, Vicky quickly finds her. Joanne then tries a more challenging spot, covering herself with leaves, but Vicky still manages to locate her effortlessly. Amazed by her daughter's ability, Joanne contemplates the implications of this unique talent. Later, Joanne and Vicky stop at a store. While Joanne is inside shopping, Vicky waits in the car. Some local children notice her sitting alone and begin to tease her, causing distress. When Joanne returns and sees the children bothering Vicky, she rushes to her daughter's aid, and the children scatter. Concerned about Vicky's unusual abilities, Joanne discusses the situation with her father. She worries that if Jimmy, Vicky's father, learns of this, he might insist on taking Vicky to a therapist, fearing something is wrong. However, her father reassures her, asserting that Vicky is perfectly normal and advising that Joanne should not overthink her daughter's unique gift. He suggests that it might be beneficial for Joanne and Jimmy to spend some time alone to strengthen their relationship. He offers to take care of Vicky for a while, giving the couple some much-needed privacy. In the evening, while Jimmy and Joanne relax and watch TV, an unexpected phone call disrupts the peace. Jimmy's reaction to the call sparks suspicion in Joanne, leading her to confront him about potential infidelity. Vicky, seated in the hall, overhears their heated discussion. Jimmy explains that the call was from his sister Julia, which surprises Joanne and intensifies her unease. The following day, Julia arrives to visit, and Jimmy is visibly thrilled to see her. However, Joanne's mood sours further with her sister-in-law's presence, hinting at unresolved issues that are yet to be revealed, possibly in an upcoming time travel sequence in the story. Amidst the tension, Vicky notices something peculiar about Julia. She mentions to Jimmy that Julia smells distinctly of wine and that her manner of speaking with him is unusually intimate. Jimmy dismissively attributes this to Julia's rural upbringing and her recent move to the city for education, which he believes might explain the differences in her behavior. During a dinner with Jimmy, Julia, and Joanne, Vicky stealthily investigates Julia's belongings. Her curiosity leads her to discover an odd bottle of alcohol in a piece of Julia's sweater. Later that night, driven by her unique sensory abilities, Vicky conducts an experiment. She combines a bit of the liquor, a small piece of the sweater, and some liquid from the mysterious bottle in a jar. When she mixes and smells the concoction, the intense aromas overwhelm her, causing her to faint and unwittingly initiate a journey back in time. When Vicky regains consciousness, she finds herself in front of a gymnasium, watching some boys head inside. To her astonishment, younger versions of her mother, Joanne, and Nadine are also there, about to join a workout session. Vicky quickly realizes that she has become invisible to those around her in this blast from the past. Inside the gym, the workout is in full swing when young Julia arrives, newly signed up and eager to join. Nadine whispers a joke into Joanne's ear about Julia, prompting a burst of laughter between them. This scene gives Vicky a unique, unseen glimpse into her mother's past friendships and dynamics. Suddenly, Vicky snaps back to the present. The next day at school, still puzzled and curious about her time-traveling experiences, Vicky covertly sniffs the jar's contents again behind a plant and finds herself transported back in time once more. This time, she observes Nadine flirting with with Jimmy, which complicates her understanding of her father's past. Meanwhile, Joanne and Julia are spending time together, seemingly close. However, things take a surreal turn when Julia spots Vicky. Confused and frightened by the sight of someone she seemingly recognizes but knows should not be there, Julia panics and starts to run, fearing she is hallucinating. Jimmy quickly intervenes, reassuring her, attributing her distress to a resurgence of her past issues with double vision. Nadine, witnessing the scene, slyly suggests to Joanne that Julia might be losing her sanity. Back in the present, Vicky's suspicions about Julia grow. She observes Julia frantically searching for something in the kitchen. Unable to find what she's looking for, Julia leaves the room in frustration. When Joanne arrives at the pool the next day, Nadine confronts her with concerns about Julia's presence at their home, citing the town's whispers about Julia's mental instability. Joanne defensively replies that Julia has only come to visit her brother Jimmy, trying to normalize her sister-in-law's visit amidst the local gossip. Meanwhile, Jimmy's friend Jeff expresses his own worries about Julia's return to their city. He fears the community's reaction, knowing the stigma attached to her past condition. However, Jimmy reassures Jeff that Julia has recovered, mentioning that she no longer experiences seizures and should be treated like anyone else. At school, Vicky attempts another experiment with her jar, hoping to revisit the past by smelling the contents. However, her plan is interrupted when some classmates approach and start harassing her, eventually snatching the jar from her hands. Curious, the kids open the jar to see what's inside, but the potent mixture instantly causes them to fall unconscious, creating a chaotic scene. Shortly after, Joanne arrives at the school to pick up Vicky, only to find herself amidst angry parents accusing Vicky of causing harm to their children. Unsympathetic to their complaints and frustrated by the ongoing bullying Vicky faces, Joanne fiercely defends her daughter. She confronts the parents, arguing that their children have consistently troubled Vicky, and it's their behavior that should be questioned, not Vicky's. In a fit of anger and protectiveness, Joanne takes Vicky and leaves the school, dismissing the parents' concerns and showing a steadfast resolve to stand by her daughter no matter the circumstances. Upon arriving at the mall, Joanne encourages Vicky to open up about the bullying she's been enduring at school. Joanne emphasizes the importance of communicating such issues so she can help. Their conversation is interrupted by a call from Joanne's father, who expresses his concern about Julia's unexpected visit, urging Joanne to meet him to discuss the matter further. That evening, Joanne prepares dinner while Julia joins her in the kitchen. The atmosphere is tense as Joanne initially avoids engaging with Julia. Sensing the strain, Julia offers to leave if her presence is causing discomfort. Instead of responding directly, Joanne decides to teach Julia how to cook the meal she's preparing. As they cook together, they gradually start to connect, but Joanne feels uneasy about this newfound closeness and instinctively pulls away. Meanwhile, Vicky uses her jar to travel back in time once again, where she discovers that Julia and her younger mother used to be quite close. This revelation comes with a twist, as she overhears a conversation between Joanne's father and Julia. He warns Julia that Joanne tends to grow bored of things quickly and suggests that Joanne has doubts about Julia's mental stability. Julia is deeply hurt by these revelations. After Joanne returns home, Julia abruptly decides to leave, feeling overwhelmed by the persistent doubts about her mental health. When Joanne catches up to her, Julia confesses that the constant scrutiny and the label of being mentally unstable have exhausted her. She insists that she is not mad, revealing that she often sees visions of a little girl, which might be contributing to others' misinterpretations of her mental state. Moved by Julia's plight and her own frustrations with the town's judgment, Joanne impulsively suggests that they both escape the stifling environment of their small town. She proposes they leave together on Christmas Day. Caught up in the moment and feeling a deep connection, Joanne and Julia share a kiss, affirming their decision. Amidst the emotional chaos, Joanne realizes she has lost an earring. The next day, Vicky, ever curious and experimenting with her unique sensory abilities, mixes a dead crow and various other substances, including some of Julia's mysterious liquid, into a concoction. As she works, she overhears an argument between her mother and grandfather concerning Julia's presence in their home. Her grandfather insists Julia is too unstable to stay with them, reinforcing the town's prejudice. Vicky discreetly places the jar containing her latest mixture under Julia's bed. That night, the mixture seems to induce a vivid dream in Julia, in which she is a child but still encounters Vicky. The dream is so intense that Julia wakes up screaming. Jimmy rushes to her side to comfort her with some water, while Vicky watches the unfolding drama from the doorway. The following morning at breakfast, Joanne inquires about a strange smell coming from Julia's room, having noticed a crow buzzing around outside the house. Vicky remains silent, revealing nothing of her clandestine activities. As a consequence of her silence, and possibly to discipline her for the unexpected unexplained occurrences, Joanne decides not to take Vicky to their usual spot at the pond. Instead, Joanne takes Julia to the pond and prepares for her ritual of swimming in the cold water. She explains that she sets a timer for 20 minutes to ensure she doesn't overexpose herself, as staying longer could harm her health. Curious about Joanne's reasons for enduring the harsh conditions, Julia asks why she does it. Joanne simply states her love for swimming in cold water. The conversation shifts when Joanne asks Julia about her reasons for coming to see her. Julia confesses that she wanted to reconnect with Joanne, highlighting their emotional bond. As tensions continue to escalate in the family, Jimmy takes Vicky to her grandfather's house for a visit. There, overwhelmed by the intensity of the emotions and secret surfacing, Vicky seeks refuge in the past once more by inhaling the potent mixture from her jar. She witnesses a moment from years ago where the younger versions of her mother, Joanne, and Julia share an intimate moment in a car. This revelation shocks Vicky, but she is suddenly snapped back to the present, finding herself in her grandfather's house where he is asleep on the couch. Grabbing her bicycle, she rides to the pond, where in her current timeline, Julia is assisting Joanne after a swim, trying to keep her warm. Meanwhile, tensions rise at the pool where Joanne works. Nadine confronts Joanne, openly harassing her for allowing Julia to stay with them. Nadine's hostility is fueled by her past feelings for Jimmy, feeling that Julia's presence has disrupted what might have been between her and Jimmy. The situation intensifies when the family, including Jimmy, Joanne, and Julia, go out for a drink. The town's prejudice against Julia becomes painfully apparent as the locals taunt Joanne for associating with someone they consider unstable. In a bold move to confront the gossip, Joanne takes Julia to the stage with her. This act shocks the onlookers, who can't believe Joanne would openly support and align herself with Julia. Returning home from the bar, the emotional strain proves too much for Vicky, who retreats to her bedroom in tears. She confesses to her father her fears about the impact of Julia's presence, suggesting that if Joanne were to leave with Julia, it would alter their family's history to the point where Vicky might never have been born. This revelation hits Jimmy hard, confronting him with the potential depth of Joanne and Julia's relationship. When Jimmy, struggling with what he has just learned, confronts Joanne, the conversation quickly escalates into a heated argument. Unable to deal with the tension, Jimmy asks Joanne to sleep in the hall and shuts the bedroom door, isolating himself. His strain in the family reaches a breaking point the next day when Vicky, still grappling with the emotional turmoil, discovers her pet bird has died. Grieving and suspicious, Vicky can't help but blame Julia, who had been staying in the guest room nearby. Overwhelmed with conflicting emotions, Vicky confronts her mother, asking if Joanne loves her or Julia more. Joanne responds with a heartfelt embrace, reassuring Vicky that she is the most loved, which momentarily eases the tension. Together, Joanne and Vicky bury the bird, a somber moment that Julia witnesses from a distance. This incident further illuminates the disruptions Julia's presence is causing within the family, leading Joanne to a silent acknowledgement of the need for resolution. The following morning, the situation escalates when Vicky finds Julia's belongings packed and placed outside, signaling Julia's imminent departure. When Julia tries to engage Joanne for a conversation, Joanne coldly ignores her, choosing instead to focus on taking Vicky to school, distancing herself from the situation with Julia. Meanwhile, feeling isolated and distraught, Julia returns to the house and seeks solace in alcohol. Her search leads her to Vicky's room, where she discovers the stolen bottle and a jar containing the cream Joanne used, further complicating her emotions and sense of betrayal. At the same time, Jimmy, unaware of the depth of the family's current crises, visits the pool to inquire about Joanne, but Nadine, distracted by her own unresolved feelings for Jimmy, claims ignorance of Joanne's whereabouts. Vicky, desperate to understand the tumultuous events surrounding her family, takes a deep inhalation from the jar in her classroom, hoping to transport herself back to the crucial Christmas day when everything changed. Her olfactory journey through time reveals a dramatic and chaotic scene. On that Christmas day, there was a festive program held in the gym. In her vision, Vicky sees Julia slipping away to the locker room to change her clothes. Shortly after, Julia and Joanne, caught up in a heated moment, rush outside together. In a desperate attempt to intervene and understand their actions, Vicky positions herself in front of the Christmas tree outside the gym. The situation escalates when Julia, perceiving Vicky as a threat or perhaps misunderstanding her intentions, reacts violently. In a startling and irrational act, Julia sets the Christmas tree ablaze. The fire quickly spreads, engulfing the nearby gym. This disastrous event leads to Nadine's tragic injury, marking her face and forever altering her life. The chaos continues as Joanne emerges from the gym, only to find Julia wielding a martial, possibly possibly a mistaken item in the confusion or a fire marshal's tool, reinforcing Joanne's worst fears about Julia's mental state. This act of setting the gym on fire is what cements the town's perception of Julia as unstable and dangerous. Returning to the present, Joanne comes home to an empty house. Julia's gone, leaving only a note of thanks behind. In a poignant twist of fate, Julia, driven by the lingering scent of Joanne captured in Vicky's jar, infused with the facial cream Joanne used, wanders to the pond. Here, the narrative comes full circle as Joanne and Vicky, upon arriving at the pond, discover Julia lying unconscious. Frantically, Joanne calls Jimmy, prompting him to rush to the scene with an ambulance. As the emergency unfolds, Julia is transported to the hospital with Joanne by her side, a testament to their unresolved and complex relationship. In the ambulance, Julia regains consciousness, and the relief and unresolved feelings between her and Joanne culminate in a kiss, a silent acknowledgement of their deep, albeit tumultuous connection. Meanwhile, Jimmy, left to grapple with the uncertainty of his family's future, returns home with Vicky. He can't help but wonder if this crisis will lead Joanne to leave him for Julia. Vicky, ever the reassurance in the storm, confidently tells her father that Joanne won't leave them. She reminds him of Joanne's promise to stay, offering him comfort and a glimmer of hope. Reassured by his daughter's words, Jimmy finds solace in playful moments with Vicky, allowing them to reconnect as father and daughter. A film that weaves through the complexities of love, loyalty, and identity within a family forever changed by the events of one fateful Christmas. If this movie captivated your emotions and left you reflecting on the intricacies of human relationships, don't forget to like and comment. Your feedback is invaluable as we continue to explore more profound narratives. Stay tuned for another compelling movie review coming soon. Until then, goodbye, take care, and keep watching. Thank you.